It's that time of year, Michelle, where we make Halloween cards for our friends.
Yes. So did you do it?
What? No, not yet, partner. But I do have some ideas.
Good.
So I've got my black ink. I've chosen a brush or two out of my kit, grabbed a bunch of ink pens, and I've done a handful of Universal Monster caricature drawings that I'm going to ink. And then we're going to talk about monsters, talk about inking, and somehow shoehorn all of this into some sort of Halloween card mailing for a few of our friends and patrons. I haven't worked out all the details. I just know I got to draw a lot of monsters, so let's get started.
Yeah, and I see you're starting with Dracula, an old school Bela Lugosi type Dracula.
Yeah, a classic. And what I wanted to do with him and the rest of these monsters is rely heavily on the brush to do most of the heavy lifting.
Nice.
Now, this may come as a shock, but I am not the world's greatest brush inker.
What? Why am I even working here?
But I have improved a good deal over the last couple years.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that I've done that is by jumping into projects like this, projects where I force myself to try tools and techniques I'm not comfortable with, and just hammering out project after project until I level up.
Oh, I like this. What's this all about?
Well, you know Bella's got that slicked back hair, that dense, glistening skull cap of hair that carried the count through a smattering of creature features, starting with 1931's Dracula, right on up through 1948's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Okay.
There's probably 24 ways to ink hair like this. But I wanted to try this method where I take a relatively fine brush, that's a Princeton Velvetouch #1 I'm using, and I kind of flick my wrist over and over, pulling these short ink lines while moving my hand across the paper.
Yeah, that looks good.
Good.
It comes off his hair, the texture, and the spots you left clean look like shiny reflections.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good method. So now you're going to take out some of your ink washes and, I assume, add some tones and texture to the drawing.
Exactly. Now, since I mentioned it, the other night, I finally strapped you down to the table in the lab and I made you watch Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. What did you think?
I thought it was a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't believe I never saw the whole thing before.
No?
The monsters were the classic Universal monsters.
Yes.
Just more kid-friendly.
Exactly. Same scary makeup.
Yeah.
Just maybe slightly less terrifying.
But still scary. Fun scary.
Yeah.
The scene in the lab at the end with Dracula and the Wolfman
Yeah.
trying to get to Costello while he's strapped to the gurney, that was pretty scary.
That scene really got to me as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Scary. It's a 75-year-old movie, so it's a hard sell for kids, but I would still advocate that this is a great movie to introduce the classic monsters to impressionable young minds.
Oh, yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right?
Right.
Well, they could turn out like you.
Hilarious. Also, I just want to note that Boris Karloff doesn't play Frankenstein in that movie. It's Glenn Strange.
Right, but Strange played him in House of Frankenstein too.
Right.
So there's a history.
Now we're going to add some subtle color with a sepia ink wash.
Just a little sepia ink mixed with water.
That's right.
The Wolfman was also in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, played by Lon Chaney Jr., as usual.
Yeah, and that's really most of the classic monsters that made it into that film.
Yeah.
Aside from a very brief appearance, disappearance, by the Invisible Man.
Voiced by the great Vincent Price.
I'm using the sepia wash on the creature's mouth here because in a lot of the color shots of this monster, they give him really red lips for some reason.
They do. So you're going to sign these and slip them into envelopes?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind getting that in the mail.
Well, that's the thing. I started thinking, it's nice to get original art, but is it really technically a Halloween card? Last year we did all that elaborate cutting and gluing and folding, so I thought about it, and I think I came up with a fun idea. It's just going to take a little extra work.
And I know how much you enjoy extra work.
I actually do. I sketched out a design in Affinity Photo, and I printed it out on cold-pressed watercolor paper.
Okay.
That way I could have multiple copies. Then I grabbed my pens and customized each one. I was going for the look of a ruined castle stone or kind of a dungeon look.
Yeah.
Something most of these monsters would find themselves at home in.
And then you went back in with more ink wash.
Yeah. Same paper as the monsters, same wash. And because I printed these out, there's a consistency across the board with all of them. But because I hand inked the details and the wash, they'll each be kind of a one-of-a-kind thing.
Nice.
I also wanted the crumbled stone to stand out a little from the monsters. So since the monsters were finished with a warm sepia wash, I got out my watercolors and I gave the crumbling stone a cool greenish cast.
That'll be a nice contrast.
I think so. After that, I began the time-consuming and often dangerous for me process of cutting and folding the cards.
So this is really getting fairly elaborate.
Well, I just want to make sure that our friends know we appreciate them.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. And as you know, some of the cards I make are going to some of the Patreon supporters who opted in. So I hope getting a monster in their mailbox will underscore how much we really appreciate their support.
Yeah, and you mentioned monsters in the mailbox.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how the Abbott and Costello movie starts.
It does.
They play shipping clerks at a railway station, and they literally receive Dracula's coffin and Frankenstein's body in crates from, I guess, Transylvania.
Yeah, and sent to Florida, of all places.
Right?
And by the end of the movie, they're in some laboratory on the top of some island off the Keys, being chased by Dracula and Frankenstein's monster and the Wolfman.
Yeah, it actually got pretty scary at the end.
It does.
A lot of the movie is very kid-friendly comedy horror.
Yeah.
Like Costello slapping the Wolfman in the face because he thinks it's Abbott in a mask.
Yeah.
But by the end, it gets nuts.
Yes. There are characters being thrown out of windows, set on fire.
And is this movie part of the Monsterverse continuity?
Oh, yeah. It's canon. As far as I'm concerned, that's how I've always seen it.
Okay.
Whatever happens in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is part of the monster character's continuity. So yeah, you can choose to believe otherwise, but that's not half as much fun. So here's how this is going to work. I take my hand-inked monster and I slip it behind the folded tabs.
And that holds it in place.
Yeah, and then we close the card and there's the monster peering out from the rubble of Castle Frankenstein. And here is the mummy, buried in his tomb, unearthed by foolish adventurers. And then there's the phantom, lurking in the bowels of the Paris Opera House.
So you've done a number of monster illustrations for this project.
Yeah.
The Halloween cards.
Yeah.
Is there not... did you make any extra?
No. These actually took so much time. Oh, for you.
Well.
No, I remember now, yeah. Because we did this last year. And you wanted a card.
Yeah.
And I surprised you with a card during the video. Yeah, no. There was just
okay.
so much work this time.
Yeah.
All I could do was make this for you.
What? Oh my gosh.
Huh?
Wow.
Do you like it?
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Listen, fellas. Some women enjoy getting roses or poetry. Some enjoy receiving jewelry or spa days.
Oh my gosh.
But what you want to do is find yourself a woman who is overcome with joy when you put the head of a horrifying monster in her hands.
Yes.
All right, so here are a few of the Universal monsters that some of our friends and Patreon supporters will be getting in the mail.
Yeah.
Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Mummy.
So scary. I think this was a great idea for Halloween cards.
Of course you do. You didn't have to do anything. The Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Wolfman.
In my defense,
Here we go.
I bought the stamps.
Phantom of the Opera. No, you did. No, you're right. You did. That's invaluable, actually.
Yeah,
the Invisible Man. And you did a lot more than that. You really did. I do appreciate all your help.
Thank you.
So, did you have as much fun with this year's Halloween cards as you did with last year's?
I like them all. This year, though, you did so many different ones.
Yeah, I really like seeing them all set up like this in frames.
A monster portrait gallery.
Yeah, and I kind of don't want to break up the set.
Yeah, well, it's too late. You already said you'd send them out.
I don't have to send them out. Nobody watches these videos. They'll never know the
People
difference.
watch. There are people watching now.
At the end?
Yes.
Nobody watches until the end. Literally nobody.
I think you're mistaken.